Hi, my name is Shmei, and I'm doing a video on how to properly do a lab report and give you some good tips and advice that will help you get that A. So first I'm going to start with an actual lab and what it is and all it entails. So I already have one pulled up right here, and so obviously this is the title. These few paragraphs right here is an introduction to the lab. It gives you some background information. Right here is a picture of all the equipment set up and what it should look like when once everything is set up. Next is the objectives. The objectives are things that you're going to get out of this lab and things you're going to do. Next, we have the materials. This is all the software and the equipment that you're going to use throughout the lab. And then we have the preliminary questions. These are questions that you'll actually have already answered before you do the lab. They kind of foreshadow what the lab is going to be, and they kind of get you in the mindset to think conceptually what this lab is supposed to be and what you're supposed to get out of it. Then we have the procedures. This is a breakdown step by step of how you do the actual lab. And then we have the data tables. This is where obviously you input your data and where you put your calculations. It's very useful because it organizes all your information instead of having it all scribbled out on a paper. It's all organized in all these tables. Then we have the analysis. So once the lab is complete, you'll answer these questions in your lab report. And I'll go more in depth into that later. And then these are the extensions. In the class that I took, we never really did any of the extensions, so we disregarded it. So now that I've showed you what a lab is, I'm going to transition into what a lab report is and kind of explain to you why it is important to be detailed. So when you're doing a lab report, you're trying to portray to the reader all the results of your lab, but to do that, you have to be detailed as possible. So I'm going to kind of break it down so it's organized and flows well together. So first, we're going to start with a title page. You're going to put your name, you're going to put the lab number, your lab report name, and then the date you did the lab on, and then your partners you worked with. Then you're going to go into, the objective, the introduction, and background, and this kind of tells the reader why you did the lab, and you can include any, background information, whether it's something about Newton's law or Galileo or any of those kind of things. And it kind of just gives the reader some more information to understand the report better. Then you're going to put your preliminary questions. And like I said earlier, these questions you should have answered before you did the lab. And what you'll do, you'll just put the question in and then you'll put your answer. So then you'll put your step-by-step on how you did the lab. You don't have to be as detailed as the actual lab was, but you can break it down into, one or two paragraphs of a short, list of what you did or how you did it. You used a force sensor, you picked something up to weigh something to, show this kind of, whatever it may be. Then you're going to put your data. This is all your results that you got, and it's going to be in the data tables that I showed you. And this is where you can also put any graphs that might be applicable to the lab. And then you're going to do your analysis. These are the questions you're going to answer that were in the lab. But they're not like the preliminary questions. You don't just put the question in and then answer it. You're going to do it in a more of an essay format. You're going to say, I did this because of this, or I think this because of this. And so it flows better, it's, not as choppy, and it's just better. And then you're going to conclude. In your conclusion, you're going to put what went well, what went bad, if you would do it again, what would you change, those kind of things. And those are very important. That kind of, whether you might have messed up on your lab, you can put, oh, I messed up here, but next time I can do it this way, and it would be much better. So now that I've showed you kind of a brief outline of how you're supposed to set up a report, I'm actually going to give you an example of mine and show you how I use those techniques to highlight my report and make it better. So first you can see that I have my introduction page, and then you can see that I actually started with my preliminary questions. I don't always do this, but for this report I did. I just thought it would flow better because these preliminary questions are a little more abstract and they kind of get the reader to think to think about it more, to conceptually understand. And you can also see that I put my questions in black and then my answers in green. This is easier for the for the reader to see what the questions are and what I put. And then right below here, this is my actual introduction, a short little brief statement of what I did and why I'm doing it. And then here are some pictures. I actually took these from the lab. They're just pictures. It demonstrates, kind of what you're doing in the lab. It's easier for the reader to visualize what you're doing and to understand. So next we have the data. As you can see, there's a couple tables and it's organized really well. You got part 1, part 2, you have some equations. It gives the reader an idea of like how you got change of potential energy, or spring constant, the potential energy in the spring, things like that. And then you have the analysis. You can see that it's not like the preliminary questions. It's not question and answer. It's broken up in essay format. And it's better. It flows more nicely. And then you can also see that I have my graphs. I like to put my graphs in my analysis instead of actually in the data because it's easier for the reader to reference back to or see what I'm talking about. You can see right above this graph I put below is a graph force versus position, and then I can reference back to it anytime I want. As well, you can see over here that I also use the equations to show the reader how I calculated some of my answers. And you can see I have a couple paragraphs. It's a little long, but it flows very well. And I didn't break up into sections my conclusion. I kind of put it all into one. And on this report, on this lab, I made a few mistakes. And so I mentioned it in here saying that I messed up here and next time I would do it a different way, and that this time it kind of limited my data, things like that. And that's why it's important. It kind of tells the reader what went well in the lab and what went wrong. Now that I've showed you how to best set up your lab report so it flows nice and it's easy to the reader or for the reader to understand, I'm going to transition into some tricks and things that I use to whether it's Word or Excel, things that are very helpful. So first I'm going to show you how to manipulate the pictures. So like I said earlier, I took these from the lab and I'm going to show you how I did that and how I manipulated them. I'm going to go ahead and take this one out. I'm deleting it. I'll go ahead and delete that one too. So and then I'm going to go back to the lab. I'm going to find it. Let's see. So here's the first one, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy it over, and then I'm going to paste it. So it kind of, does its own thing. It splits everything up. So I'm actually, I do want to mention I'm on a Mac, so it's going to be slightly different if you're on a PC. So I'm just going to right-click, and then I'm going to go wrap text, and I'm going to wrap text through. And I love this function. I use it all the time. And then I can just I can put it anywhere, and it's going to push the text through. And so I like it, about there, it's a good place for it. It looks well. It looks really good. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you this other one, but I'm going to do it a different way. So I'm actually going to screenshot it, and for a Mac, it's actually a lot simple. You can do partial screenshots where you choose a section, or you can do the full screenshot. I'm going to do the partial one, and all I do is hit Command-Shift-4. And then you can see my little arrow right there with some coordinates put on, or with it. And then I'm just going to go like that and wrap it around the area that I want. And it's going to take the picture. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab this picture. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in. And it's as simple as that. So for a PC, how you do this, you're actually going to have to print screen and then you copy it. So I'm gonna print screen on mine and show you how to crop it. So for a Mac, it's not to do the whole screen, it's instead of using Command Shift 4, you're actually going to use Command Shift 3. And mine makes a little shutter sound. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the picture, right? And I'm going to go ahead and put it in. And you can see it's really small, I mean, because it's a whole screen. So I'm going to make this a little larger, so it's easier to see. And then if you double click on a picture, it brings up the command prompts for the pictures, which is the format picture. And I just want to mention one thing. Microsoft or Office is a little strange, but I really enjoy it. So the smaller it gets, the less command prompts you have, and the larger, the more that show up. So, alright, you're going to go ahead and find crop, which is right here. And you select it, and you see right here that these little black corners show up, and you're just gonna move it around the picture that you actually want. And so I like try to make the image as large as I can because the resolution's better. It's easier to see. So that's why I'm using this one instead of the one over here, because it just, when you go to expand it out, it's going to be all blurry and it does not look as nice. And so after you have the area you want, you just hit enter. Oh, sorry, you hit crop, and it's good. And then you can go ahead and make it whatever size you want. So I'm going to shrink this back down again real quick. And then I'll move on to a few more cool tricks. So I mean, you can see, I mean, it's right there. It's easy as that. And that's what you're going to have to do for a PC. You'll have to print screen and crop it, or unless you're high speed and you have a snipping tool, which I love. I use that at work all the time. Now that I've showed you how to do a print screen or a crop a picture, I'm going to go on to my next trick. And this is how you put equations into a document. And it's actually extremely simple. This is a chemistry lab that I've done, and you can see the format is actually very similar to the physics. But in this one I used a lot of equations and I showed the calculations. So I'm going to go ahead and put in an equation. So you just go up here to document elements, and it's going to be the same for a PC, except I think your command prompts are slightly different. So go ahead, select equation, and a text box shows up. So up here you have fractions, you have derivatives, you have exponents, all that fun stuff. You have a limit. I mean, if you're into calculus and you have to do all that, everything's really simple. I actually find this equation maker very simple to use. I like it. Up here you have all the symbols, so if you need to use plus or minus or add a theta, or any of those, whether you need mu or rho, all that fun things is there. But when you're actually doing when you're actually trying to put in a symbol like mu or theta into your Word document, it's not as simple as that. You actually have to go to Insert, Symbol Browser, and then you put your cursor wherever you want it to be, and then you select whatever it is that you want to insert. So I use mu a lot, so I'll just show you the mu. And there it is. It shows up. Before, it used to be a lot easier, but since they updated the system, it's kind of a roundabout way to get it. And that's kind of, that shows you how to use the symbols, which I use a lot. I showed you how to use the equations. And then the next thing I wanted to show you is how to do subscripts. They're very simple. Microsoft Office actually put in this thing. It used to be harder, but now they put in two little buttons where you can choose whether you want to do it a subscript above or below. And so if you wanted to do, like, you got volume and you want to do initial, here I'm going to do it down here where there's more space so you can see it. So if you wanted to do volume and type in initial, you would just hit this little button right here with a subscript below and type in whatever you want. And you can see that it's all going to be there until you hit it again, and then it's all big letters now. So that I use a lot as well, and it's very useful. My next trick that I'm going to show you is how to create a table, and I'm going to show you a few different ways, and I'll tell you the way I prefer it. So you can see this is also the chemistry lab that I was showing you earlier with the equations, and I had to create some tables for it. And so you can either create it yourself. In the physics lab, they'll have the tables already created. I like to just copy and paste it over and fill it in, or you can either do it to the Word or you can do it to Excel. I like to do it to Excel because then you can put the equations into it and it will populate the correct answer. It'll do all the math for you. And I'll show you how to do that in one moment. So I'm going to show you how to create a table in Word. And what you do, you go to Tables, and then you go to New, and then you go to Insert Table, and it'll ask you how many columns and rows you want. And I'm going to go, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I need 6, and then I need 5. And hit OK, and there you go. I have my table. And I like to just make my table this way and paste it over because the ones in Excel, they have more things to do. It's like if you're making an extremely large table, you can organize and everything. But these are just simple, easy, exactly what I need for just a simple, easy table for my report. So I already have that, and I'm going to go ahead and just copy these over because I already created them. And oh, I guess I needed more rows. Oh, wrong one. Excuse me. Let me copy the correct one over. And so there you go. And to put the information in, so I just did some simple equations. I had initial and final, and a lot of equations you have to, subtract the initial from the final. So I'm going to go ahead and put this information in right here. And that's just, plugging and chugging, right? And then, so, one second, let me just fix this up real quick. Remember what I was saying earlier when, Microsoft being weird? So you actually have more command prompts, as the Windows is expanded, and this is the one I was looking for. This is a border one. So I want to go ahead and do thick borders around it. Sometimes it's a little glitchy, but I'm going to go ahead and I hit custom. And then I would like to do inside and outside, and then that thickness of the line. And there you go. So, okay, here I'm going to do a simple equation, and I select in there, and in there I'll put equals final minus initial, and just hit enter, and there it is. So, now that I have that, I want to do the rest for the other equations. I don't have to do that for every single one. I just hit the bottom corner of the thing and then drag it down, and it populates. And if you look at it, so B28 minus A28. So there you go. You got B28 minus A28 instead of the one up here where it was B25 minus A25. And it's really simple. They've done a really good job on this. I really enjoy it. It's made my life so much easier. And then you can do it's as simple as that. So now that I want, let's say I want to change this to, so right now this is in milliliters and I want to change it to liters. All I got to do, I've already selected the correct box I want. I hit equals that number multiplied. I just type in shift 8, and it's the little asterisk sign, times 1 divided by 1,000, or if you wanted to, you could go divided by 1,000, same thing, and then just hit enter, and it changes it for me. And I want go ahead and push that over to there. And it's really simple. Oops. So the next thing I want to show you is actually, I'm going to show you in this table right here. So you see I have these numbers. All I did was I did a percentage, but I didn't actually have to put it multiplied by 100. All I had to do was go to this command prompt, and you can see in regular view that's what it looks like. And then I want to go to percentage, and it switches it over to percentage, which is in the 100th decimal place. So let's say I have this number and I actually do not need all those decimals. I'm actually going to show you how to take them away. So right here is you can either subtract them or you can add them. And it's, I mean, really simple and easy. And then when you're done with this, and when you're done with the whole, table, you got it formatted the way you want, you can just go ahead and copy it over and paste it. And then the other thing, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that and paste this one in. And then I want to show you one more thing that will help you. And it's like as you're working with these, it's very simple. So let's say I wanted these two to merge. Let's say I only needed one thing right here and I wanted this line to go away. All I have to do is select them, right click, and hit merge cells. And there you go. It's as simple as that. To summarize, I have showed you what a lab is. I've showed you how to create a lab report, to set it up and organize it where it flows nicely so that the reader can understand what you're trying to get across. I've showed you some really cool tricks from Excel and Word, from cropping pictures and to screenshotting, and I hope that all these were very useful. So goodbye and have a good day.